Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, maybe you're watching the stream on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to go over there, subscribe, watch the live stream, join the YouTube chat, be part of the conversation. Maybe you're watching on Twitter at _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there at Ticket 1430. If you want to follow the station, maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. Or maybe you're just listening on 1430 AM, driving around the Indianapolis area, tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, I greatly appreciate it. Something I do not appreciate are all these injuries for the Indianapolis Colts. Just injuries continue to pile up for this Colts team. And, look, this is just the reality of the NFL. Every team deals with injuries. And this one for the Colts, man, it sucks. Tyquan Lewis has put together a good year for the Colts so far, a quarter of the way through the season. He only has 1.5 sacks. But whenever he's in, it feels like he is just constantly applying pressure on the opposing team's quarterback. Okay, I felt like he was just consistently in the backfield against the Steelers, especially on Sunday. He has 12 pressures on the year, and he is heading to the IR, sadly, with an elbow injury. This is going to hurt the Colts. Thankfully, Chris Ballard has done a good job of creating depth on the defensive line. Say what you want about Ballard, but that is something that the Colts are always going to have as long as he is the general manager here. They will have depth on the offensive and defensive line because Chris Ballard loves himself some big dudes that can protect the quarterback and can get after the quarterback. But it's no secret, anytime you lose a player that's playing a significant amount of snaps, you're going to get worse. You just are, no matter how good the guys behind him are. And Colts defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, he was asked yesterday during his media time what losing Tyquan Lewis is going to do to this Indianapolis Colts defense.
First of all, as a man, great leader. I think I said 2 games ago against the Chicago game, you could feel it there's a number of plays where he felt like he was a guy in particular that really emptied his tank. But he plays like that every game. He no matter where we put him, if it's inside, if it's outside, you know what you're going to get from him. And, he's going to give you a full day's work. And, even that last play, right, when he got hurt, so tremendous effort, tremendous football IQ, and helps out the younger guys. So, and he's a playmaker for us. So, that one's going to be hard on us, but, we'll have other guys that will step up. But, he's been tremendous for that group, and he'll still be around and in that room helping those guys. That's the kind of guy he is.
That was Colts defensive coordinator Gus Bradley discussing Tyquan Lewis and what losing him is going to do to this Colts defense. And he's right. This is a guy who has consistently made some plays for the Colts throughout the season, and they've needed him to because the Colts have had a fair amount of injuries on that defensive line. DeForest Buckner out. Ibukam, tearing his Achilles before the year even started. And those are just 2 of this long list of injuries that the Colts have already sustained, 4 weeks into the season. Just listen to this list. Anthony Richardson got hurt last week. He's day-to-day. Hopefully he's able to come back and play on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jonathan Taylor, he's got a mild high ankle sprain. No idea what that means. Usually if you have a high ankle sprain, that's a terrible thing, right? Ryan Kelly, starting center, he hurt his neck. Jelani Woods, tight end, is on IR. DeForest Buckner is on the IR return. Samson Ibukam, IR late return, right, towards Achilles before the year started. Kwity Paye's hurt. Tyquan Lewis, who I just mentioned. Juju Brents is on IR. Kenny Moore got hurt. Just a plethora of injuries for this Indianapolis Colts team, and some of them are worrisome. Okay, every injury that happens in the secondary, we need to be worried about because, as we all know, there's not a ton of depth on the back end. As we all know, There's not a lot of talent on the back end either. And so every secondary injury, like, we need to be worried about. And it feels like most of the injuries for the Colts so far this season have come on the defensive side of the football. And hopefully those injuries stop, because the Colts, defensively don't feel like they're as talented as they are on the offensive side of the ball. There's just a lot of injuries. Despite all the injuries, though, we have seen improvements from this Indianapolis Colts defense, from the second half of the Packers game on, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Usually, when your defense struggles early and then you have injuries, things get worse. But Gus Bradley and this coaching staff for the Indianapolis Colts have figured out a way to improve this defense despite the injuries that they've, had so far through this year. Gus Bradley was asked how they improved the defense despite the injuries yesterday.
We made a commitment to go back to fundamentals and get back to doing things right, from crack replace to using our hands to getting off blocks. And, we did some different things too up front. So, really, I like I said before, our guys, I think if you go back to that Green Bay, we talked about keeping the spirit of our defense, and we kind of talked to them about, hey, from the second quarter on in Green Bay, it was like, 30-some carries for 90 yards. And then they added that on to the Chicago game, and then they added it on to this past game. So I think there's a confidence level that, we always had it in us. We just had to get back to the fundamentals and do things right. So we're still not there yet. I mean, there's some plays that were left out. Our tackling has improved, but still not where it needs to be. But at least, they can see that there's progress being made.
Gus Bradley, Colts defensive coordinator, right there, discussing how this defense has gotten better. And I find it interesting that he talks about how they've just gone back to fundamentals. Fundamentals are just something that are never really talked about, but they're obviously the foundation for every great athlete. And, even the pros, man, like, fundamentals are incredibly important. They have to be emphasized, even for these guys that are being paid millions and millions of dollars in, to play a sport. And ultimately, the best football teams in the NFL, college, high school, whatever, they block incredibly well, and they get off blocks and tackle really well. Like, if you do those three things at any level better than everybody else, you're going to win a lot of football games. And this defense, despite being banged up, has gotten better. They're getting off blocks better. They're tackling better. That's why the run defense has been so much better. Okay, like, they are improving as the year goes on. And once again, this defense is banged up, and there's going to continue to be injuries throughout the season, because football is an incredibly physical game. But they still have to produce. Injuries aren't an excuse, because every team in the NFL has to deal with them. The difference, though, is that the better teams are going to find a way to win despite the injuries. And for the Colts to win this upcoming Sunday, they're going to have to keep Trevor Lawrence in check, which doesn't seem very difficult right now, given how bad Trevor Lawrence has been to start this season. But this is a guy who has had success in the past. I think that the Colts are going to walk into this game, fans at least, are going to walk into this game. We're going to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to be like, oh, they're 0-4. Most, fans watch their team and they watch primetime games. So, they're watching the Colts on Sunday at 1 o'clock. They're not really watching the Jags. And then they see them on, Sunday Night Football, get their doors blown off by the Bills. Maybe it was Monday Night Football. Either way, though, the premise still stands. But I am telling you, as someone who has watched the Jaguars play a lot this year, they are better than any. They are I don't want to call them a good 0-4 team, but they are better than what their record suggests. Gus Bradley, he understands that. He was asked about how to keep this Jacksonville Jaguars offense in check going into this matchup on Sunday.
Well, you're right. I mean, they do both, right? They take their shots. They had a couple shots against Houston that, were just off the fingertips or overthrown a little bit. So that, they kind of do a combination. It feels like, once he gets into a rhythm, He starts getting into a rhythm. He's really good. So it's going to be important for us to understand. We know there's the quick game, the RPOs, but there's the shots too. And he's got a lot of threats on the perimeter, a lot of guys. He doesn't go to one guy, but he feels comfortable to use all of his weapons. So, we're seeing him back there play with some poise. They just have, had some misfortune, but it's still, when you watch it, I mean, it is a coordinated offense, and you can see what they want to do. They want to get a run game going, get the ball in his hands, get it to the skilled players. There's just been a couple plays here and there that have kept them from being in a situation where, they were to start with a better record.
Gus Bradley is exactly right. Colts defensive coordinator right there, talking about this upcoming matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. As we all know, Colts haven't won, the last 9 times they've visited Jacksonville. This feels like a year where they could win, but we'll see. Gus Bradley is exactly right there at the end, talking about how this Jacksonville Jaguars team is only a couple of plays away from not being 0-4 and from potentially being 2-2. And I've said this multiple times. If Travis Etienne doesn't fumble the football walking into the end zone against the Dolphins, then they probably win that game. All right. Last week, they get stopped 4th and goal from the 1 against the Houston Texans, a chance to go up 10. They don't score. Tip the cap to the Texans defense there for grabbing that win. But I know no one is sleeping on the Jaguars this week because it's been almost a decade since the Colts last won in Jacksonville. But this Jacksonville team is not as bad as 0-4 suggests. They run the football incredibly well. They're averaging 5.7 yards a carry this year. This team can line it up and they can run the football. The only team in the NFL that's running the ball better on a per carry basis is the Baltimore Ravens. And they're going to be the best rushing team in the NFL because, they have Lamar Jackson in addition to Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. This Jacksonville team, they're physical. They can run the football. They've got some players on defense. They've had some injuries on the back end. Their pass defense hasn't been great. They've got some dudes. They've been really close to winning some of these games that just haven't quite been able to close it out. So going into this game, this is not a walk in the park, 0-4 Jacksonville. Oh, they aren't very good. That is not at all who this team is. This defense for the Colts is going to have to show up because Jacksonville can and will move the football on Sunday. But here's the other reality of things. While the defense is going to be important this week, and I have a tendency to harp on the defense because I, grew up in a household where it was preached that defense wins championships. I believe it. I really do. You have to get stops in order to win. But the offense also obviously has to score. They have to score points. And we've seen this Colts offense lose a game this year against the Packers because they just didn't score enough. All right. And the best chance for the Colts to win on Sunday is for Anthony Richardson to play quarterback. And for that to happen, he has to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy. And Colts offensive coordinator Bob Cooter was asked about Anthony Richardson's slide habits after, he got hurt in the last game because he decided not to slide after picking up a first down. Here's Colts offensive coordinator Bob Cooter.
It's, I think even going way back through the offseason and training camp, we had a lot of discussions, with you guys around the office, all that good stuff. We've sort of covered all the bases on this thing. It's you have to be careful taking the competitiveness out of a great competitor, and Anthony, when he's out there competing like crazy, we're constantly working to coach all our guys. Anthony obviously being a key one of those guys, and we're talking through all the details of everything that's going on in the field. But as a coach, as a coaching staff, it's a delicate balance with us trying to sort of get the best ball out of those guys and sort of coach them to play their absolute best football, without taking away that competitive instinct. So it's a constant discussion. Obviously there's going to be certain times when it pops up more than others. I think Anthony told you guys he's out there playing football. It is a sport where, you're going to take off and run. You might scramble on a play. You might move on a play. You're going to have to sort of instinctively act very, very quickly in the moment, and sort of compete, right? Compete. So we'll keep having those discussions around here. We'll keep sort of talking through it. But it's one of those just sort of discussions and things where we're trying to be conscious of the way we work with our guys.
That was Colts offense coordinator Jim Bob Cooter discussing the slide habits that Anthony Richardson has, and his habits as of right now, where I'm not going to slide very much. And I want to focus on a part of that response from Jim Bob Cooter that is important and something that he's very right about. Anthony Richardson is highly competitive. We saw it against the Bears when when he turns around, he hands the football off to Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor gets stuffed at like the 3-yard line. And what happens from there? Anthony Richardson begins pushing the pile before any offensive lineman even thinks to do so. And they wind up pushing Jonathan Taylor into the end zone for a big touchdown. Like, this is a guy who is competitive, right? We saw him throw a block last week against the Steelers because he is competitive and he understands that like this is football and it's a physical sport, right? And like, this is one of the things that I like about Anthony Richardson. Like, he's not afraid to put his body on the line, which is a good thing in some spots, but it is also obviously a bad thing in other spots, especially, when you're a guy like Anthony Richardson who gets hurt. I know that the narrative around him is that he's kind of injury prone. I don't know. When I look at his injuries in the NFL, I don't think that it points to an injury proneness. Whereas like Joe Burrow, I would argue, is injury prone because all of his injuries have been weird. If, for example, last year Joe Burrow hurts his wrist, he goes to the doctors and they're like, yeah, we have no idea what's wrong with his wrist, right? Like, that hasn't been the case with Anthony Richardson. Okay. He suffered a concussion last year. Concussions happen to every player in the NFL. They happen all the time, right? He sprained his AC joint, right? That potentially just happened to Will Levis. We're still kind of waiting to hear about that, but that is a normal quarterback throwing injury that if you land on it, you can hurt it, right? Like that is a normal injury, right? And then this last week, he took a helmet to the hip. Happens to guys all the time. Hip pointers happen to everyone. Okay, so even the injuries for Richardson, like, they suck. Don't get me wrong. He needs to slide more, but I don't think they're as alarming as everyone else would make them out to be. With that being said, talking about the competitiveness and the injuries, first and foremost, it's hard to be competitive when you aren't on the field. Okay, and it's easier to stay on the field if you slide more. Okay, I understand that it's football, right? When Anthony Richardson was asked about if he should slide more after the game on Sunday, he was like, I don't know, man. It's football. It's just the way that it goes. And I get that. And there are undoubtedly moments where Anthony Richardson doesn't need to slide. For example, week 1, right? They're trying to score before the 2-minute warning. He runs right, gets hit by a safety, doesn't slide, powers his way into the end zone. And because of that, the Colts had an opportunity to win week 1, right? So there are definitely these moments where he needs to put his head down, use his incredible amount of size and strength and power to pick up first downs and to get into the end zone. But there are also moments like this last week against the Steelers where he takes off on a run, he picks up a first down, slide. Like, you got the first down, the objective has been achieved. Okay, you're not at the goal line trying to power your way into the end zone. Get down, slide. Right? It's the first quarter. It's the second drive. Like, let's just slide. And hopefully, look, the dude's 21 years old. I think we can all remember being 21. I don't know about you. I didn't listen to anybody when I was 21 years old. That's not true. I listened to my parents and my coaches, but that was it. I didn't listen to everyone because I was 21, and 21-year-olds are dumb. They are. They don't always listen. Okay, there's a tendency to think that they know more than what they actually do. Okay, and hopefully Anthony Richardson has this moment of, you know what? I get that it's football. I get that I need to be physical. I get that I'm big and strong and I can run through people. But hopefully, Anthony Richardson learns starting Sunday that it is okay for him to slide and that he doesn't need to fight for every yard on every single run. Okay, there's a time and a place for him not to slide. Those times are obvious. Okay, the end of the game against the Texans is the best example. And then there are undoubtedly times where he needs to. And hopefully he learns to differentiate those times as the season progresses. Colts Jaguars on Sunday. I'm hoping that we see Anthony Richardson under center playing quarterback because he gives the Colts the best chance to win. And with every game, there are certain aspects of it that I am excited to see, that I feel good about from a Colts perspective. And then there are other aspects of the game that I'm pretty worried about. When we come back here in 4 minutes, I'm going to give you my Colts versus Jaguars confidence and worries. Just going to give you the things that I'm confident in and the things that I'm worried about. All that is coming your way here in about 4 minutes. At 11 o'clock, Zach Pierles of CBS Sports, NFL writer, he said to join me. We're going to talk all things NFL, Colts, Jaguars, Davante Adams, trade request, all that good stuff. That is at 11. But when we come back here in 4 minutes, Colts, Jaguars, my confidences and my worries heading into that game.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. 11 o'clock, Zach Pirles of CBS Sports. He's an NFL writer over there. Go check out all of his stuff. He's joining me at 11. We're talking Colts, Jaguars, Davante Adams trade request, and more. Can't wait to have him on. That is at 11 o'clock, 35 minutes away. Colts, Jags on Sunday, 4 days away. Every game, there are things that you feel good about, and there are things that you worry about. For example, last week, I was worried about how Anthony Richardson would look against the best defense in the NFL. Okay, but I was pretty confident in the Colts defense's ability to get stops because the Steelers don't exactly have a prolific offense. Same thing here with the Colts and the Jags. There are certain things that I'm confident in. There are certain things that I am worried about. So I'm going to give you 3 things I'm confident in and 3 things that I'm worried about. The thing that I'm most confident in for this upcoming Colts game against the Jags is this offensive line. They have been one of the best offensive line units in the NFL. Quentin Nelson and Will Fries might be the best guard duo in the NFL. Okay, and look, I know that we live in a world that tells you that all that matters are offensive tackles. That's just wrong. Offensive guards are incredibly important because they have to block guys like Chris Jones and Aaron Donald. I know Aaron Donald's not playing anymore, but he's just a good example. You need good guards. More importantly, because your offensive guards are the guys who run block. Those are the guys that pull around on power plays and on sweeps, not offensive tackles. Okay, the Colts, and a large part of why Jonathan Taylor has had success this year on the ground is because the Colts have 2 athletic guards that can get out in front of Jonathan Taylor and throw blocks. They make the Colts run game better, which is what this Colts team is all about. They want to run the football, and that is not possible without Quentin Nelson and Will Fries paving the way. And they're even more important this week because it looks like there's no Jonathan Taylor. Mild, high ankle sprain. That's what he's come down with, which is not encouraging at all. I don't expect him to play on Sunday. I expect it to be Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson, which leads me into the first thing that I'm worried about, Jonathan Taylor's health. I've mentioned, a lot this year about how important he is to this Colts offense. He takes a lot of the pressure off Anthony Richardson because on 2nd and 4, Anthony Richardson can just hand it off and Jonathan Taylor can go get a first down. Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson, they're decent backs, but there's a huge drop-off. Okay, that's why we've barely seen them this year. The Colts have ran the football 105 times this year through 4 games. It's not enough, just saying. But Jonathan Taylor has 72 of those carries. Anthony Richardson has 21 of them. Trey Sermon has 9, and Tyler Goodson has 0. They don't want to play these guys. And part of that is because of how great of a player Jonathan Taylor is. But at the same time, they were pretty willing to throw Zach Moss in there last year when Jonathan Taylor was available. But not this year. They don't want Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson to run the football. I don't feel like they have a ton of faith in these 2 backups. And it's going to be interesting to see how if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, how that impacts the way that the Colts want to attack this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. But if there's any week where the Colts want to throw the ball, it's this week. I am confident in the Colts' ability to throw the football this week, whether it's Joe Flacco, the quarterback, or Anthony Richardson. This Jacksonville Jaguars secondary is awful. The Jaguars are giving up the 2nd most passing yards per game, which says a lot considering that they're 0-4 and teams are trying to run out the clock at the end of games. Okay, the Minnesota Vikings are giving up more passing yards than any other team in the NFL, which makes sense because they've blown teams out and teams are throwing the football a lot more against them because of that. The Jaguars are 0-4. Teams are running the ball late in the game to close games out. They're not looking to throw it against this Jacksonville team, and yet they've still given up more passing yards than any other team in the league, not named the Minnesota Vikings. So these Colts receivers, they're going to be able to create some separation. Hopefully that makes the throws easier on Anthony Richardson. Honestly, that might not be a good thing because you can't make the easy throws, right? Either way, though, I expect for the Colts to have success throwing the football this game just because this Jacksonville Jaguars secondary hasn't been good at all this year. Something that I'm worried about, though, when you look at this Jacksonville Jaguars team, there's one thing that they've done incredibly well, and that is run the football. I am worried about this Colts run defense. Okay, the Jacksonville Jaguars are second in the NFL in yards per rushing attempt. This is a team that can and wants to run the football. They're averaging 5.7 yards a carry. They have two good backs between Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. Okay, this is another game where the Colts and their run defense are going to be challenged. And I know that they were better against the Bears. I know they were good against the Steelers, but I still don't have faith in this Colts run defense because of what I saw these first 2 weeks of the season. Okay, this Colts run defense has to be on point again because if it's not, the Jaguars will gladly run the football amidst all of these Trevor Lawrence struggles, which leads me to something that I'm confident in. I'm confident in these Trevor Lawrence struggles. Trevor Lawrence has been nothing short of terrible this year. He's only completing 53% of his passes. It's not very good. He's not converting on third downs. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 30th in third down conversion percentage at 25% in the NFL this year. So they're not converting on third downs, and they also aren't scoring in the red zone. They are 26th in red zone touchdown percentage at only 42%. This is a bad passing offense. Just a bad offense, period, honestly. They don't convert third downs, and they don't score in the red zone. Usually offenses that don't convert third downs or don't score touchdowns in the red zone aren't good, and that's usually because there's an issue at quarterback. Hopefully these Trevor Lawrence struggles continue as the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Colts on Sunday. Last thing here, the thing I'm worried about. I'm worried about Anthony Richardson. While Anthony Richardson gives the Colts the best chance to win if he plays quarterback, I'm worried because I don't think Jonathan Taylor's going to play on Sunday. And if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, then there's going to be a heavy reliance on Anthony Richardson. And while he looked great in the 13 plays that we saw from him against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's not who he is consistently yet. And with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, look, he can help the Colts beat anyone, and he can also help the Colts lose to anyone. Okay? And putting more of the offense on his shoulders, which is what's going to happen if Jonathan Taylor can't play. Like if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, then the Colts are going to throw the ball more, and they're going to run Anthony Richardson more if he's healthy and if he plays. And that is a nerve-wracking thing because I just don't know if Anthony Richardson is ready for that kind of workload yet. So hopefully he plays great on Sunday. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor's healthy. I don't think he will be, but, we're going to cross the fingers there. Because, Anthony Richardson, up and down, up and down, up and down, as we all know. And hopefully he's up on Sunday. Someone who's not up right now is Davante Adams. He's down. He's down on the Raiders. He's sad. He wants out of Las Vegas, and I can't really blame him. Okay, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL, and he's stuck with Gardner Minshew throwing him the football, and he's stuck with Antonio Pierce being his head coach. Not a great combination if you're a receiver who wants the football a lot. So, people are coming out, dropping their takes. He should go here. The Jets have already extended an offer. The Cowboys are apparently interested. I don't know how the Cowboys can be interested. Like, their money's all locked up. There's no way. And also, the Cowboys need help on defense, not offense. It doesn't make sense. So we're not even going to address that. The Jets, they're a popular destination because of this relationship with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this will happen. I really don't. The only way I see the Jets making this trade for Davante Adams is if Hassan Reddick is willing to go play for the Raiders, and I don't know if he is or not. Because the Jets just don't have much to give away. Right? Like they could definitely give up a second-round pick. That's not a big deal. But like player wise, because the Raiders want a second round pick and a little more, I just don't know what player they'd be willing to part with. Because defensively, like they need all the pass rushers that they have. They need more pass rushers, honestly. They need Hassan Reddick. Okay. There's nothing that they can really part with. And so the only way I see this Jets trade happening with the Raiders for Davante Adams is if they send Hassan Reddick with the second round pick. But Hassan Reddick obviously has to be willing to play for the Raiders if that's ultimately what they want to happen. So we'll see. I don't think Davante Adams ends up in New York. Just some other teams that I think have to be mentioned. The Steelers wanted Brandon Ayuk before the year started, so I'm sure that they're going to get in on the Davante Adams sweepstakes. We'll see if he wants to catch passes from Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. That's not exactly a huge upgrade from Gardner Minshew, but we'll see how he feels about that. The Patriots, they checked the same box. They were also in on, trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk, right? They need receivers badly, and Adams would most definitely fill that void. Once again, though, I don't know if Davante Adams wants to go to New England to catch passes from Drake May or Jacoby Brissett. So I don't know about that. The Chiefs, they lost Rashee Rice. They need to be mentioned, but I find it highly unlikely that the Raiders want to trade one of the best receivers in the NFL to a divisional rival that's won the last 2 Super Bowls. So I find that one hard to believe. I don't know if Buffalo will get involved, but the Bills definitely should. Their game against the Ravens would have been more competitive if they had an elite receiver. None of their receivers could really make a play on their own. It felt like all their receivers have to be schemed open, or Josh Allen has to run around for forever, and then someone gets open via the scramble drill. The Bills need a guy like Davante Adams, but we'll see if they get involved or not. The place that I would like to see Davante Adams wind up, and I'm going to talk to Zach Peerless of CBS Sports NFL writer about this at 11 o'clock. I want to see him go play for the Commanders. Their offense is already electric, but it would obviously only get better with a guy like Davante Adams. They need another receiver outside of Terry McLaurin that can win a one-on-one. Like watching Luke McCaffrey has been cool, I guess, but the Commanders are already a legitimately good team, and adding Davante Adams would only make them better. Speaking of better, I'm excited for this Indiana Pacers season. Training camp for the upcoming NBA season is underway. Preseason games start soon. So I'm going to do a short Pacers preview, talk a lot about that over-under win total at 47.5. Tell you whether or not I'd bet that over or under when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen, no matter how you are listening. Playoff baseball going on. Love playoff baseball. It's been a blast. As a Cubs fan, I have just gone ahead and adopted the Detroit Tigers. Their story has been awesome this year. Wouldn't mind seeing the Braves win either, just with all the injuries that they've gone through. Something that I'm really looking forward to is this upcoming Indiana Pacers season, because the Indiana Pacers are, I think, going to be pretty good this year. The over-under win total for them is set at 47.5. I like them hitting the over, and that feeling was very much validated after hearing Rick Carlisle's opening statement the other day for their first media day of the year. Here's Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle on what's kind of the theme is for this upcoming Pacers season.
The main theme for this year for us is we want to build on what we did last year. There'll be an awful lot of attention paid to the defensive end. At Christmas time last year, we were 28th in defense. We made some pretty significant changes to the lineup, got more physical, we got bigger. Between Christmas and All-Star, we got to 26th. Traded for Pascal, thereabouts. And from All-Star to the end of the season, we were 18th in defense. So, we made some strides. We learned a lot about our team, about our system. And then, of course, we had, a lot of playoff experience to look at as well. But we believe we can get better. We believe that defense is one of the things that's got to be a constant, if you're going to win a championship. And so a lot of time will be spent on it. I'm not going to throw out any, numbers as to what our goal is. I mean, we certainly want to, get into the top half of the league in defense and, hopefully one day be a top 10 defensive team. To do that, one thing that I've learned is that positional size is very important. When you play small, you get killed. You're going to win. You can win some games with skill and offense, but consistency defensively has a lot to do with size and physicality. And so, if there are ways for us to get bigger to start games that help our long-term growth, everything's on the table.
That was Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle kind of laying out what the Pacers' goal is for this season. Once again, I like them over 47.5 wins. It's 48 or more for the people who struggle with math. And look, Coach Carlisle is exactly right. The defense was an issue last year for the Pacers, but as Coach Carlisle highlighted during that statement, they improved dramatically over the course of the year, and I expect them to be better this year defensively. Pascal Siakam allows them to be bigger defensively. Carlisle, they're talking about the importance of positional size. Siakam gives them some of that. He helps them to rebound and finish possessions as well, right? When Siakam showed up, they improved a lot defensively. And something else that's going to help them out this year defensively is two young guys. Benedict Mathurin being healthy should help this team. He's tall. He's long. He has the body type of a good defender. The dude's like 6'7", playing shooting guard. He's got like a 6'9" wingspan, tall, long. Benedict Mathurin, highly athletic. Okay, so I think he's going to help them defensively this year, kind of with that size and length. Jarris Walker, I still have hope in. The dude's 20. It's his second year in the NBA. Okay, he didn't play a ton last year because Pacers had a lot of good players on their team. And he's a guy who projects as a good wing defender. And he's athletic enough to defend threes, and he has the size to defend fours. Those two young players should help the Pacers tremendously on the defensive end for those minutes that they're out there on the floor. I'm incredibly excited about the return of Benedict Mathurin. He's a large part of why I like the Pacers to hit the over on those 47.5 wins this year. Okay, he's going into year 3, and last year when he got hurt, it felt like he was about to turn a corner offensively. Before he tore his labrum, he was out for the rest of the year. His point total last year was down from his rookie year, but his efficiency numbers were all up. He shot 37% from 3, which is, look, if you're shooting 37% from 3, like you're going to have a career in the NBA. And he was shooting 45% from the floor overall. I was excited about him because before he got hurt, he had just kind of branched his game out. He was starting to hit threes off the dribble. Just the shot creating and the scoring ability was like on the verge of being special, right? But then he got hurt. And this is something that great players in the NBA have to do now. They have to score off the dribble from all 3 levels. And he was starting to do that. I have huge expectations for him this year. And Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle, he was asked about expectations that he had for Benedict Mathurin, and he also let on a little bit about what he needs from Jarris Walker for him to see the floor this year. Here is Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle talking about Benedict Mathurin, and at the end, Jarris Walker.
You know, Ben has great ability. He has an indomitable will to score. He gets the ball in the basket. What he needs to do this year is adjust his game to how we played at the end of the season and in the playoffs, which is to play fast, to run, to make quick decisions, to keep the ball moving, and to take his defensive ability to another level. He has the physical tools to do it. He spent a lot of time in preseason, working individually on defense, and the things that are so hard nowadays in defense are, obviously guarding the ball with 5-out spacing. The gaps are bigger. That's one thing. The other thing is pick and roll defense. And so, on the ball pick and roll defense is one of the hardest things in our sport. But when you have a strong will and you have that kind of strength, you have the ability to do it. So, pretty exciting, really. And, he saw the things that Ben Shepherd did. And Shep is a guy that plays with speed, quick decisions, defends without fouling. And if anything, he moves it a little too much. Sometimes there's shots he passes up that he probably should take. But that's the kind of spirit that we need from all of our wings, and that's the kind of activity we need from all our wings. And that's Ben, and that's also Jarris. I mean, Jarris now is probably more 3 than 4, partially because of roster construction. But Jarris is a guy that can help us with positional size at the 3 position. And so, those guys are going to be key to our growth.
Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle there talking about Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin. And Benedict Mathurin's development is going to be important. Coach Carlisle is exactly right when he talks about how Mathurin has to get better at not letting the ball stick. He likes to play one-on-one. He's a good one-on-one scorer. But this Pacers team was so much fun to watch, and they found so much success because of how they moved the ball on the offensive end of the floor. And that obviously starts with Halliburton, but the other 4 guys on the floor have to be willing to move the basketball as well. And if Halliburton and Siakam are both willing to move the ball, then that you would think would lead to everyone else being willing to move the basketball as well. Benedict Mathurin has to do that and defend if he wants to play this year, because the Pacers have a ton of good players. Like you could argue they have too many. They have like 10 guys who you feel like could play in a playoff series. And so if you don't defend and you don't move the ball, you're not going to play. You aren't going to. And, he there on Jarris Walker as well in his development. As I mentioned earlier, Jarris Walker allows the Pacers to be a good defensive team because of his size. He just has to defend, keep the ball moving, and make open shots. If he can do what Ben Shepherd did last year, okay, which is run the floor, shoot the ball well, make smart decisions, then Jarris Walker's going to play, right? Like that's all he has to do. I'm making it sound really simple, but playing in the NBA is incredibly difficult. But if he can do those things, if he can make some open shots, run the floor, work hard defensively, and move the basketball well, then he's going to play and he's going to help this Pacers team be better than what they are. I love the Pacers over 47.5 wins. Having Siakam for the full season makes them better. Having Benedict Mathurin back makes them better. Having Jarris Walker in year 2, if he developed the way that he should, makes them better. Okay, the over-under is set at 47.5, and the Pacers won 47 games last year. And they didn't have Siakam the whole year. Certainly, having Pascal Siakam from beginning to end is worth at least one more win. I know, but Jonathan, the East is better. Yeah, I don't care. Okay, the Pacers beat the best teams in the Eastern Conference consistently last year. They beat the Bucks consistently. They beat the Celtics in the regular season. They beat the Knicks. Okay, I'm not worried about them. The reason why the Pacers didn't win more games last year is because they didn't beat the Hornets and terrible teams like that, which having a guy like Siakam, being a year older, being a little more mature as a whole on this roster, you would think would help them win those games early in the year against the Hornets and the Pistons and the Trailblazers. Okay, I like this Pacers team. They're going to be good. They're going to be fun to watch. What I'm really curious to see is whether or not they kind of take that next step to being a legitimate big time title contender. Okay, Tyrese Halliburton, he's got to improve a little bit for that to happen, especially offensively. Just got to be more aggressive in scoring the ball. Mathurin's got to improve. Jarris Walker has to develop into a role player, and Pascal Siakam has to continue to be Pascal Siakam. But I'm excited to watch this Pacers team this year. I'm excited to watch the Colts on Sunday. I'm excited to watch college football on Saturday. I'm excited for Thursday night football tomorrow night. I love football. Zach Pureles loves football. He's set to join me here in about 5 minutes, and we're going to talk about all things NFL, especially the Colts, Anthony Richardson, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this potential Davante Adams trade. That interview with Zach Pureles of CBS Sports is coming your way here in about 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Joining me now, Zach Peerless of CBS Sports, NFL writer, really a writer of many things. It's just NFL season, so that's what he's covering right now. Zach, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great, man. Colts are 2-2. Got off to an ugly 0-2 start, but they've bounced back in a big way. What have kind of your thoughts been on the Colts through the first 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think they're finding that identity of we've got to be a team that runs the ball. I think that the defense has gotten better in stretches. They're being more disruptive, which if you don't have that down-to-down consistency, you've got to find ways to create turnovers. I think that I'm sure we're going to get into it. I think that they're about a 500 team that's going to bring you some really fun highs and some really frustrating lows.
Yeah, that's what they feel like so far. There are, like you said, the highs are incredibly high. And I talked about this earlier in the week, is there are moments where I'm like, this could be a playoff team. And then there's other moments where I'm like, this team deserves to have a top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. Is Anthony Richardson the reason why they feel like they're such an up and down team? Or do you think there's more to it than just Anthony Richardson's inconsistent play at quarterback?
I think it's roster wide, but I think it has to start with Anthony Richardson. I've been thinking about how I wanted to describe him, and I feel like kind of the metaphor I settled on is like you build a house with these beautiful chandeliers and paintings and the newest devices, and then like the floorboards are terrible. It's just one of these things where like it looks so good when it's good, but just the basic things that you need, it's like it just isn't there all the time. One of the funnest stats that I kind of found when I was looking, and thinking about Anthony Richardson, he has a higher completion percentage on throws 50 yards or more downfield than he does on throws at the line of scrimmage or behind it.
Jeez.
Like the throws that are right in front of him, these quick little throws, just the things that you need to hit to stay on schedule. And obviously it's a tiny sample size, but yeah, like his highlights, you're like, this guy's incredible. His lowlights are like, how is this guy in the NFL? And that's just what you're getting on a down-to-down basis. It's just not there, but the highs are incredibly high. And yeah, I think, that beautiful house with all the latest gadgets and all the beautiful paintings, but it's like the heat doesn't work or the plumbing doesn't work.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Joined by Zach Peerless of CBS Sports and NFL writer. And like, how do you feel about that? Because it's like usually I feel like there's a consensus public opinion on every quarterback, and with Anthony Richardson, people are incredibly split. So like, do you like all the gadgets? In this new house where the floorboards are a little messed up. Like, are you willing to fix the floorboards? Do you think it's possible to even do that? What do you kind of think about, this quarterback who's got, everything that you want, but maybe not the necessities that you need to consistently move the chains?
Yeah, I think a big thing is this is why you really wish he had a fully healthy rookie season, because I feel like he could have not only adjusted more and obviously gotten better, but then you have a more full picture of what he is. Right now, it's like 8 games into his career. It's not a full picture yet. He has barely played more than any of these, 2024 rookies that we're talking about. It's still so early. So it's just one of these things where I think that the sample size is still so small. He still has all those physical attributes. You want him to be. There was an old school of thought that was like quarterbacks are either accurate or they're inaccurate. And if they're inaccurate, they're not going to get better. Accuracy is something that goes back years and years and years. But then it's gotten a little bit different more recently with guys like Josh Allen, who I think is like a reasonable obviously physical comparison for Anthony Richardson. This is a guy who was not accurate at all, but there have been so many developments in quarterback training, and everyone has their private quarterback coach and all the body mechanics. I think that that's something that Anthony Richardson can improve on. So it's just still so early. I get the frustration, and I get like the idea that the improvements haven't been there, but he is just coming off of, obviously not only just playing 4 games as a rookie, but he didn't get to improve as much as he wanted during the season and then into the off season with that injury. So I almost view him as like a half rookie, or honestly a full rookie at this point. And if you view it in that light, I think you understand the inconsistencies a little bit more. And combined with the fact that I think he can improve that accuracy, I think that there's still hope. It's just frustrating now, and I can understand why it'd be so frustrating for Colts fans.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, joined by Zach Peerless of CBS Sports and NFL writer over there. And here's the other thing. Like you said, he hasn't played very much. He's appeared in 8 games, but he's only started and finished 4 of them, which is another issue in and of itself. Like, got to stay healthy. He's also still the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, there is time for him to get better. And as you mentioned, like, we've seen Josh Allen improve. And he's like, I feel like people think he's an outlier, but there are so many quarterbacks that are playing really well right now that we've seen, get better. Lamar Jackson improved as a passer. Geno Smith was a first-round pick, was benched like his second year, and now all of a sudden he looks like one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL in Seattle years and years later. Sam Darnold has gotten better. Jalen Hurts got off to a rough start, had a great year with Tyquan. He's kind of regressed a little bit, but like you said, like, we're in this new era where we have seen quarterbacks get better in terms of accuracy, and hopefully that's what happens with Richardson, because, if he can complete throws at the line of scrimmage and 5 yards down the field, like, he'll be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And I want to transition now to a guy who I think people expected to eventually be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but now it seems like he's broken. Trevor Lawrence. What's going on with him? What do you think the issues are in Jacksonville?
Oh man, there is such a long list. Like, I don't even know where to start. I think the offense looks so difficult for a guy who is supposed to make it look so easy. The arm talent is there, but it just seems like everything is so hard. They throw so many balls to the sidelines. They really have trouble in the middle of the field. And part of that is kind of their receiving core makeup is, Brian Thomas Jr. has been really good, but he's a burner. He's not a over the middle guy. I've been really impressed with Brian Thomas Jr. Christian Kirk is a guy in the slot who can give you some over the middle stuff, but he really likes to get outside from his slot. And then Gabe Davis is, he's an incomplete player. He's a deep threat. Evan Ingram's absence has really hurt them. I mean, he almost set the tight end catches record last year, and he hasn't been there. And he's a guy who can help you attack over the middle. It's just, I feel like you see these like 3rd and 4s, and they're making Trevor Lawrence throw like a 6-yard route that's only 6 yards downfield, but it's like all the way to the sideline, and it gets broken up and they punt. I think it's so hard. I think the system is letting him down. The offensive line, they've kind of taken half measures here or there to improve it, but it's still not good. I think that I still believe in the talent. You have seen him make plays that are second to none. I still believe in the arm talent. I think that part of it is like things just unravel or have unraveled so quickly. It seems that there are times where you're like, what are you doing? What's going on? I still believe in the talent. I think there's going to be big changes there pretty soon. They just need to make it. You look across the league and there are so many teams that make things easy on their quarterbacks, where they're throwing the ball, how they're throwing the ball. And then you watch Jacksonville and it's like, why is this 3rd and 4 one of the 5 hardest throws he's going to have to make all day?
Yeah, that's a great observation. You're especially right on the receivers. I hadn't really even thought about that because, like you said, like they're all burners. Even Christian Kirk, like you said, he wants to play kind of more on the outside, and they're such an interesting case study because they run the football as well as anyone in the league, not named the Ravens. They're averaging 5.7 yards a carry, and it just feels like if Trevor Lawrence's completion percentage wasn't 53%, which doesn't even feel right saying just based off the expectations we had for him coming into the league, knowing that he's a guy who's had some success, won a playoff game. Then again, it was against the Chargers and Brandon Staley. So, whatever. But if he could just find any sort of consistency, it feels like this Jags team would be pretty good. Is that kind of how you feel about them? Or do you think that the issues on defense kind of limit them from being a good football team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably some issues around him. I think that he could certainly be better. And the other thing that I think it's so easy to look at 0-4 and be like, so much is wrong here. But the Jaguars, they find ways to lose that just don't make any sense. Like most fumbles lost since the beginning of last year, and some of that is Lawrence, but some of it is like week one.
Yeah.
If Travis Etienne just holds onto the ball and runs into the end zone, they beat a healthy Dolphins team, and you're like, that's pretty good. If they can hold on for 18 more seconds last week, they beat the Texans. They're 2-2. You're like, nobody is talking about the Jaguars being a bad football team. And I think that that's what's so frustrating is they just find ways to beat themselves. Trevor Lawrence has found way too many ways to beat them. But it's these tiny little differences in the NFL. We always talk about how even the best teams, they play a ton of close games. And as you're seeing, even the worst teams play so many close games. And the Jaguars just find this way to lose them. I think one last quick thing on Trevor Lawrence, kind of backing up that they make things so hard on him. NFL Next Gen Stats does this expected completion percentage. And Trevor Lawrence has the 5th lowest percentage. He's only expected to complete 62% of his passes. Now, he's obviously not even hitting that mark, but it's just like his expected completion percentage, just based on the throws, is already so low that you're having a big, big problem. When we look at the other guys down there near the bottom, there's Jacoby Brissett, there's Anthony Richardson because he loves to take all those deep shots. Like, they have to find a way to make Trevor Lawrence's life easier, and they simply have not.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Joined by Zach Peerless of CBS Sports. He is an NFL writer. You can check out all of his stuff at cbssports.com. I want to switch gears here because yesterday we now have a disgruntled elite wide receiver that wants out of Las Vegas. I don't blame him. I don't think Gardner Minshew's that great. I'm not an Antonio Pierce believer either. And I think everyone kind of just expects for him to go play for the Jets. I know the Jets have already, reached out to the Raiders and made an offer. Apparently the Cowboys are interested. I don't even know how that works with their salary cap issues. Where are kind of your thoughts on where Davante Adams could potentially wind up?
Yeah, I think that a big thing is it's got to be a team that can offer a lot of draft equity. Like the Raiders, especially if they move on from Davante Adams, like they're going to have plenty of salary cap room. They obviously are not paying a quarterback huge money. Like they're going to, and they wouldn't if they draft one because then he would come cheap. Like they're going to have plenty of salary cap. They need to add draft picks to this one, especially because they gave up a first and a second for Davante Adams, which if you look back at it, that's a whole different story. But yeah, I think that a big thing is they need to find people who can give them draft equity back. They need to, it's just been like, I feel like the entire Davante Adams time there has been half measures of like adding him, but not beefing up the defense or the offensive line enough, or adding him, but having no plan at quarterback. Just all these half measures, and that's why it's gone so off the rails. When you look at, potential landing spots, I feel like every website in America, every sports website in America has done potential landing spots. And that price tag is going to be prohibitive for some teams. I wonder about the Jets just because of the familiarity there. Davante Adams has said he wants to go somewhere where he's familiar with the quarterback, or there's a belief that he wants to do that. I don't know if I like the Saints as much as a fit. Obviously, people are going to bring up the Chiefs. There's going to be some, financial restrictions there. I just am having trouble seeing exactly who it's going to be right now. You'd love for it to be the Jets. You'd love for it to be the Chiefs or the Cowboys. Everyone would want a Davante Adams. I'm just not really sure where it's going to come from. Obviously, the Steelers maybe have been floated. That maybe makes a little bit more sense to me, but it's just so much up in the air. And it's always felt like the Davante Adams fit didn't really make sense, considering the Raiders weren't willing to go that next step further and get the guys around him to make it work and be a really high level team. I wish that I had a better answer than there are plenty of suitors. They're all going to have issues making it work, whether it's with draft capital or with fit or with money.
Joined by Zach Peerless, NFL writer for CBSSports.com. So you mentioned the Chiefs. Even if the Chiefs figured out how to make it work with the money stuff, I just don't think that the Raiders want to trade one of the best receivers in the NFL to their division rival that's won 2 Super Bowls in a row. So I don't really see that happening. The Jets are kind of interesting. Like, it kind of makes sense. I don't know. The Steelers, like you said, they've kind of been floated, but it's like, does Davante Adams really want to go play with Justin Fields or Russell Wilson? You mentioned how, like, he's kind of putting an emphasis on the quarterback position. The two places I would love to see him, and I'm curious your thoughts. I'd love to see him in Buffalo, because I like watching the Bills get crushed by the Ravens Sunday night. I think the biggest thing that popped out was, like, Keon Coleman, he might wind up being a good player, but he wasn't really separating from Baltimore's DBs. Shakir, he was fine, but it felt like they had to scheme everyone open, or Josh Allen had to extend plays and find guys late. So I think they could really benefit from an elite receiver like Adams. But I'd also love it if he ended up in Washington playing for the Commanders. Like, that offense is already awesome. It feels like they could benefit, though, from a second receiver. What do you kind of think about Davante Adams winding up in one of those two places, like, in terms of how much fun it would be, and is it even a possibility for those teams to go after him?
Yeah, I think that the Bills would be really fun. That's a great call out. I think that, I think that he would be a great fit for Josh Allen. We talk about how, like, Josh Allen has just become such a good player, such an accurate thrower, to the point where he's a guy who would give Davante Adams chances on those contested catches, on those small window throws. I agree 100% with you. I really like Khalil Shakir. But yeah, like, the outside wide receivers, it's just been an issue. And I agree, Keon Coleman's shown some really fun flashes, but I think Davante Adams would be a great addition there. They obviously had such a tough offseason in terms of money, getting rid of a lot of veterans. So I always kind of think about this idea that, like, money in the NFL is fake, and the salary cap is fake, and teams just make it work. And I think that loss to the Ravens maybe did open some eyes, but yeah, I just don't know, after what they did over the offseason, if they're going to go back into salary cap purgatory almost. And then Washington, I think that that'd be a really good fit. Again, Davante Adams would be a great fit everywhere, I think. But Washington, I just think it's been a little bit of we have gotten off to a way better start than most people thought, but we also haven't done it by sacrificing our, big overarching plan. They brought in some veterans. talk about Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, things like that. But it's still a youngish team. They have high hopes for the guys that they drafted in that big draft class. So I just kind of wonder about the timetable, if they want to disrupt that timetable. If Washington goes on to have a good season without Davante Adams and they can go push forward into the future, even if it's not a good season, if it's just a promising season, I think that that's what they would prefer. I haven't seen a whole lot of big move veteran, signings. There's a lot of money still on that Davante Adams contract. So I think it'd be fun there. But I think just with how they're rolling now, I don't know if they want to make that big splash just yet. It's one of these teams where you look, they're 3-1. They could definitely use another wide receiver, but it's really easy to be a prisoner of the moment and say, this makes so much sense on paper. And it's another thing to say they have a big, long-term, long-range plan, and Davante Adams probably doesn't fit it.
That's a great point. You were in Washington for training camp and preseason and all that. Are you surprised at how good the Commanders have been to start the year, especially Jaden Daniels, because he's just gotten off to just an awesome start?
Oh man, it's been I don't even know if I have the words to describe it. It's been shocking. It's been surprising. It's been incredibly fun. I did a story on them actually last night. The numbers they're putting up are like historically good. Like their success rate, their down to down success is the best on record right now. It's on pace to be the best ever. And the teams that are up there are teams like Peyton Manning's peak Colts teams and Drew Brees' peak Saints teams. Like they are legitimately up there with the best offenses we've seen in terms of efficiency, in terms of what Jaden Daniels is doing. Now, Jaden Daniels isn't going to complete 82% of his passes all year long. But again, I think that you've seen the signs that you really do want to see going forward. Jaden Daniels has done a great job in the pocket, avoiding sacks. This was kind of an issue, if there was an issue for a Heisman Trophy winner in college, is that, his pocket management was sometimes a little up and down. He's been really, really improved in that. The offensive line has been a very pleasant surprise. These receivers that they've gotten opposite Terry McLaurin have really stepped up. Like Noah Brown was a guy they added days before the season. He was kind of not a surprise cut, but a notable cut, and he's brought physicality. He's been really reliable. Luke McCaffrey, Christian's younger brother, is a rookie. He converted from quarterback during college and has been a lot of positive signs there. I just think that things have come together really nicely early on. Like offensive line was a huge question mark. It's been terrific so far. And a big reason for that is it's a lot easier to play offensive line when you're not in 3rd and 10 all the time and you're not in 2nd and 15. They've done a really good job staying ahead of the sticks. They've had ridiculous success on 2nd down, which has been kind of one of the fun things I discovered. Like they're just staying on time, on target. And then when they're not, Jaden Daniels has done it with his legs. He's done it with his arm. It's been really, really, really good so far. Like historically good. People think it's good, whatever. And especially in light of how much Washington has struggled at quarterback, the numbers are like the best we've seen this millennium, which is it's wild. And I would half warn people maybe that it will fall off a little bit. Like I don't think this is going to be Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison offense the entire season. But if they can just continue to be good, an upper level offense, even for just this year, that'd be really impressive. I think there are still holes on the offense. There are a lot of holes on the defense, although I think we saw some improvements last week against the Cardinals. I just think in general, like this start has been beyond anyone's wildest dreams. And one other thing. Obviously, the normal regression will probably happen as teams get more film and they have a better understanding. I think one thing that I'm trying to keep in mind is Cliff Kingsbury has done an incredible job. And I think him being able to just be an offensive coordinator and not a head coach has really done wonders for him and for this offense. There's been a lot of creativity, a lot of unpredictability. They mixed in enough of play action and quarterback run and all these different things. I'm interested to see how sustainable it is, because one thing about Cliff Kingsbury's offense is when he was at Arizona is that they struggled in that second half of the season. It seemed like they had all the answers and they looked awesome for 8 or 9 weeks, and then they would struggle down the back half. So I haven't seen any signs that that's going to happen here. I've been really, really impressed with his creativity and with Jaden Daniels' poise and obviously his skills. But I just would say that's one thing to keep in the back of your mind as the season goes on, and they face better defenses as well.
That's a great point. They've been so much fun to watch. I bet them over 7.5 wins before the year started. I feel great. I bet them to win the division a couple days ago because it was plus 290. I was like, this is absurd. They look great. Zach, I appreciate your time as always, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Anytime.
You got it, man. Have a good one. That is Zach Peerless of CBS Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Zach_Peerless. Great guy, knows his stuff. Obviously, great writer as well. You can read all of his stuff at CBSSports.com. And we come back here in about 4 minutes. The Colts have a lot of injuries, and yeah, they're slowly but surely piling up. Tyquan Lewis is now on IR. Going to talk about that and the rest of these Colts injuries when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hope you're having a nice Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. It is always greatly appreciated. Coming up in a couple weeks, we got a big event happening at Back 9 in downtown Indy. You can join me, Dan Dockich, and the rest of the Indy Sports Ticket team on Saturday, October 26th at Back 9 for Bourbon and Birdies, presented by Pay Less Liquors. Get your all-in ticket to enjoy unlimited bourbon. Unlimited bourbon. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Unlimited bourbon, unlimited food samples. I'm liking this already. Get an hour in a bay to knock around some golf balls. If you've never been to Back 9, imagine a better version of Topgolf. That's what it is. Heaven Hill, the official bourbon of Bourbon and Birdies, is going to be on hand. We'll also have Birdie Brown straight wheat whiskey and Tom Bullock's burnt orange bourbon. It's going to be an absolute blast. Get your tickets now. See a full list of the bourbons that are going to be there at indysportsticket.com. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait. Love bourbon, love good food. Both of those things are going to be there. So how can you not have a good time? Plus, we get to hit some golf balls. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Something that is not fun, though, are injuries. Tyquan Lewis headed to IR. He's had a good year for the Colts. 1.5 sacks through 4 games, 12 pressures. Like, you have felt his presence throughout the season. He's headed to IR with an elbow injury. Colts defensive coordinator Gus Bradley was asked about the injury and how this impacts the team's defense losing Tyquan Lewis.
First of all, as a man, great leader. I think I said 2 games ago against the Chicago game, you could feel it. Like, there's a number of plays where he felt like he was a guy in particular that really emptied his tank. But he plays like that every game. He no matter where we put him, if it's inside, if it's outside, you know what you're going to get from him. And, he's going to give you a full day's work. And, even that last play, right, when he got hurt, so tremendous effort, tremendous football IQ, and helps out the younger guys. So, and he's a playmaker for us. So, that one's going to be hard on us, but, we'll have other guys that will step up. But he's been tremendous for that group, and he'll still be around and in that room helping those guys. That's the kind of guy he is.
That was Colts defense coordinator Gus Bradley right there, talking about why losing Tyquan Lewis sucks. And this injury does suck. It's another injury for this Colts roster. They've just had a plethora of them this year. It feels like most of them are on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, Anthony Richardson goes down last week with a hip pointer. Hopefully he's good to go for Sunday. Jonathan Taylor, mild high ankle sprain. Ryan Kelly, questionable with the neck. Jelani Woods to IR. DeForest Buckner's on the IR return list. Samson Ebukam, he's on IR, tore his Achilles before the year started. Defensive end Kwity Paye has been out. Tyquan Lewis, defensive end, just headed to IR. Cornerback Juju Brents, he's on IR. Kenny Moore got hurt. So many injuries. But it hasn't mattered. I was saying, what do you mean? Injuries always matter. They do. But despite the injuries that we have seen from this Indianapolis Colts team, we have still seen steady improvements from this Indianapolis Colts defense. Okay, like, despite the injuries, despite multiple defensive linemen going down, the defense under Gus Bradley has gotten better. And he was asked yesterday why the defense has gotten better despite all of the injuries.
We made a commitment to go back to fundamentals and get back to doing things right, from crack replace to using our hands to getting off blocks. And, we did some different things too up front. So, really, I like I said before, our guys, I think if you go back to that Green Bay, we talked about keeping the spirit of our defense, and we kind of talked to them about, hey, from the second quarter on in Green Bay, it was like, 30-some carries for 90 yards. And then they added that on to the Chicago game, and then they added it on to this past game. So I think there's a confidence level that, you know what, we always had it in us. We just had to get back to the fundamentals and do things right. So we're still not there yet. I mean, there's some plays that were left out. Our tackling has improved, but still not where it needs to be. But at least, they can see that there's progress being made.
Colts offensive coordinator Gus Bradley right there talking about how and why this defense has gotten better. And look, it's been an impressive coaching job from him, helping this defense improve despite losing important players. And this defense is once again going to be banged up this week, but they still have to produce. And look, injuries are never an excuse in any sport, because in every sport, people deal with injuries. The better teams, the teams that are better coached, the rosters that are constructed better are going to find a way to win. And for the Colts, if they want to win on Sunday, they have to keep Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence in check, which doesn't seem overly difficult right now. He's a guy who's had success in the past, though. This Jaguars team is really close to being 2-2, despite him not playing very well. And Gus Bradley was asked yesterday, how do they keep this Jacksonville offense in check?
Well, you're right. I mean, they do both, right? They take their shots. They had a couple shots against Houston that, were just off the fingertips or overthrown a little bit. So that, they kind of do a combination. It feels like, once he gets into a rhythm, he starts getting into a rhythm. He's really good. So it's going to be important for us to understand. We know there's the quick game, the RPOs, but there's the shots too. And he's got a lot of threats on the perimeter, a lot of guys. He doesn't go to one guy, but he feels comfortable to use all of his weapons. So, we're seeing him back there play with some poise. They just have, had some misfortune, but it's still, when you watch it, I mean, it is a coordinated offense, and you can see what they want to do. They want to get a run game going, get the ball out of his hands, get it to the skilled players. There's just been a couple plays here and there that have kept them from being in a situation where, they were to start with a better record.
He's exactly right. Gus Bradley, Colts offensive coordinator, there talking about this upcoming matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, they're a couple plays away from being 2-2. Very easily could have won last week on the road against the Houston Texans. Should have won week 1 against a healthy Miami Dolphins team, but they didn't pull it out. And I know no one's sleeping on the Jags because, it's been almost a decade since the Colts last won in Jacksonville, but this team isn't as bad as that 0-4 record suggests. And while this defense is going to be important this week, the offense has to score points. And their best chance to do that is with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, right? And in order for him to play and to start and finish the game, he has to stay healthy. And Colts offensive coordinator Bob Cooter was asked yesterday about Anthony Richardson's sliding habits.
It's, I think even going way back through the offseason and training camp, we had a lot of discussions, with you guys around the office, all that good stuff. We've sort of covered all the bases on this thing. It's you have to be careful taking the competitiveness out of a great competitor, and Anthony, when he's out there competing like crazy, we're constantly working to coach all our guys. Anthony obviously being a key one of those guys, and we're talking through all the details of everything that's going on in the field. But as a coach, as a coaching staff, it's a delicate balance with us trying to sort of get the best ball out of those guys and sort of coach them to play their absolute best football, without taking away that competitive instinct. So it's a constant discussion. Obviously there's going to be certain times when it pops up more than others. I think Anthony told you guys he's out there playing football. It is a sport where, you're going to take off and run. You might scramble on a play. You might move on a play. You're going to have to sort of instinctively act very, very quickly in the moment, and sort of compete. So we'll keep having those discussions around here. We'll keep sort of talking through it. But it's one of those just sort of discussions and things where we're trying to be conscious of the way we work with our guys.
That was Colts offensive coordinator Bob Cooter right there talking about Anthony Richardson's sliding habits. And he's exactly right on something that's important and a trait that I like in a quarterback, really any athlete. Anthony Richardson is incredibly competitive. We saw it against the Bears when he started pushing the pile on a Jonathan Taylor handoff that led to a touchdown. That's my favorite touchdown from the Colts all year. right? They're on like the 5 or the 6 yard line. He turns around, he hands it off to Jonathan Taylor. He gets stuffed at like the 2 or the 3 yard line. He starts pushing Jonathan Taylor towards the end zone. And then you see all the Colts offensive linemen like, oh crap, we should probably help them do this. And then you see them push the pile into the end zone. And it was just awesome. I had just the biggest smile on my face when that happens. And I love how competitive he is. You know, we saw him throw a block against the Steelers last week. Okay, with that being said, it's hard to be competitive when you aren't on the field. I get that it's football, and there are undoubtedly moments where Anthony Richardson doesn't need to slide. For example, week 1, they needed a touchdown before the 2-minute warning. He put his head down, plowed his way into the end zone, just ran through a safety. It was great. But there are also moments like, I don't know, in the first quarter on your second drive when you take off, you pick up the first down. Like, you can probably slide after you pick up the first down, right? Instead of taking on 2 players and getting hit in the hip and then missing the rest of the game. Like, there are moments where he needs to slide, but there are definitely moments where he doesn't need to. And he needs to learn these things. It is imperative for his development and for the Colts' success this season and hopefully off towards the future. Like, it's hard to be a great player if you aren't playing, and hopefully he can mature from this mistake, because that's what it was. He should have slid on Sunday. Hopefully he can mature from that, and he can learn and grow and hopefully stay on the field a little bit more than what he has so far through the first, 21 games of his NFL career. Colts Jags Sunday. There are certain things I'm worried about, other things I'm confident in when it comes to the Colts matchup against the Jaguars. I'm going to give you those things when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Colts, Jags, Sunday. As there is with any matchup, there are certain things that you're confident in walking into a game, and there are certain things that worry you. Okay, for example, last week I was worried about how Anthony Richardson would deal with that nasty Pittsburgh Steelers defense in the drive and a half that we saw. He handled it pretty well. And there are certain things that you're confident in. Like last week, I was pretty confident in the Colts defense given how lacking that Steelers offense was leading up to that Colts game. And for this week, I've got 3 things I'm confident in, 3 things that I'm worried about. When it comes to the confident things, I am confident in this Colts offensive line. They've been one of the best offensive line units in the NFL this year. Quentin Nelson and Will Fries might be the best guard duo in the NFL. And for some reason, people think that guards don't matter in the NFL when they undoubtedly do. Undoubtedly. If you want to have a good rushing attack, you have to have good offensive guards, right? Those are the guys that are pulling around the edge, getting out in the open, and blocking dudes. That is what they do. Athletic guards like Quentin Nelson and Will Fries allow teams to have a better run game. A large part of why Jonathan Taylor has found success this year is because of these awesome offensive guards that the Indianapolis Colts have. Right? They've done a great job paving the way for Jonathan Taylor. That doesn't seem to be the case this week, leading into my first worry, Jonathan Taylor's health. I don't think he's going to play this week. I've mentioned a lot about how important he is to this Indianapolis Colts offense. Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson, they're decent backs, but there's a huge drop-off. That's why we haven't seen them hardly at all this year. The Colts, through the first 4 games, have ran the football 105 times. Jonathan Taylor has 72 of those carries. Anthony Richardson has 21 of them. Trey Sermon has 9 carries, and Tyler Goodson has 0. They don't want to play these guys. Part of that is because of how great of a player Jonathan Taylor is. Like, you want that guy on the field. But, I mean, I don't know. They seem pretty willing to give Zach Moss the football last year when Jonathan Taylor was healthy. Okay, so I don't think they have a ton of faith in these 2 backups, Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson. We'll see what they do. We'll see how they perform, because I don't think we're going to get Jonathan Taylor after that mild high ankle sprain that he suffered this last week late against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is fine. If there's any week where the Colts can afford to not have Jonathan Taylor, it's this week. I'm pretty confident in the Colts' ability to throw the football against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are horrendously bad on the back end of their defense. The Jags are giving up the second most passing yards per game through the first 4 weeks, which says a lot because they're 0-4. That means teams have been trying to run the clock out at the end of games, yet they're still giving up all these passing yards. Okay, the Minnesota Vikings are allowing more passing yards per game than any other team in the NFL, which makes sense because they're 4-0. They've dominated a lot of teams, and so teams are having to throw the ball more to try and get back into games. That has not been the case with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, they haven't been very good on the back end of their defense. I like the Colts and hopefully being able to create some big plays through the passing game, because once again, this Jacksonville Jaguars defense hasn't been very good. Something, though, that I am worried about is this Colts run defense. The Jacksonville Jaguars are second in the NFL in yards per rushing attempt. They can run the football. They're averaging 5.7 yards a carry this year. They have 2 backs between Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby that can really play. Okay, this is another game where this Colts run defense is going to be tested. And I know that, in the second half against the Packers, it was a lot better. And then against the Bears, it was good. And then last week against the Steelers, it was good. I'm still not to a point, in part because of all these injuries on the defensive line, I'm still not to a point where I'm just like, yeah, I trust this Colts run defense to be good. I'm not to that point yet. And so this Colts run defense, Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed have to continue to play well. Grover Stewart has been awesome in the middle for the Colts this year. He has to continue to play well. Okay, because if they don't stop the run, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be more than happy to continue to run the football amidst these Trevor Lawrence struggles. Okay, like they want to run the ball given that Trevor Lawrence is, only completing 53% of his passes this season. Okay, leading me to the next thing that I'm confident in. I'm pretty confident in Trevor Lawrence's struggles. Trevor Lawrence has been nothing short of terrible this year. That is ultimately why the Jacksonville Jaguars are 0-4. Okay, he's only completing 53% of his passes. He's not converting on third downs. The Jacksonville Jaguars have the 30th ranked third down offense in the NFL. They're only converting their third downs 25% of the time. Zach Peerless from CBS Sports, he joined the show earlier, had a great observation. It's like when you look at these Jacksonville receivers, They're all burners who want to win on the outside. They don't have guys that want to run routes over the middle. He's like, and because of that, they struggle on third downs. And so hopefully the Colts can get off the field on third down this week. That's obviously important. When it comes to Jacksonville, they also weren't scoring in the red zone. They're not scoring touchdowns, at least. They are 26th in the NFL in red zone touchdown percentage at only 25%. Like, teams that don't convert on third down and don't score touchdowns in the red zone usually aren't very good on offense, and it's usually because of their starting quarterback. So even though this is a Jacksonville team that likes to run the football and is capable of doing so at 5.7 yards a carry, I'm confident in this Colts defense to get off the field on third downs because Trevor Lawrence has just struggled so much this season. Last thing here, and it's a worry. Worried about Anthony Richardson. And I'm probably going to keep doing this worried and confident list. It's kind of fun. Anthony Richardson's going to make the list every week in terms of something that I'm worried about. Because while Anthony Richardson gives the Colts the best chance to win at the quarterback position, he also, as we know, also gives the Colts a decent chance to lose because he can be so up and down. And if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, and it doesn't look like he's going to be relied on more. Okay, I don't think that the Colts want or trust Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson to consistently produce at the running back position. And so because of that, I think they're going to look to run Anthony Richardson more, which is worrisome because of the injury aspect of things. They're going to ask him to throw the football more. Okay, and while he's very capable of making big plays down the field, when it comes to just moving the chains, we've seen him struggle. And that's a worrisome thing. He looked great in the 13 plays that we saw from him against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's not who he is consistently yet. And look, with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, the Colts can beat anyone and they can lose to anyone. And anytime that's what you have at quarterback, it's a little worrisome because ultimately we don't know what we're going to see from him. If it's, the guy that we saw against the Steelers, those first 13 plays, then the Colts should win on Sunday. But if it's the guy that we saw throw 3 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers, I don't like the Colts' chances. Okay, hopefully, he's that early Pittsburgh Steelers version of himself, and the Colts move the football consistently, and they hit on big plays down the field, and he makes big throws. If that is, the level that he plays at, then he can undoubtedly help the Colts break this horrific Jacksonville losing streak on Sunday. That's going to do it here for the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to tune in and listen. The Dan Dockett Show coming your way here at noon. You can listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. If you want to tune into my show tomorrow, I'll be on from 10 to 1 o'clock. Dan Dockett is out Thursday and Friday, so I'll be on from 10 to 1 these next 2 days. Can't wait. Love doing the shows. Love going for 3 hours. Can't wait. Juiced up, ready to go. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way in 5 minutes. This has been the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll talk to you tomorrow from 10 to 1. Can't wait. Talk to you guys then.